March 25th, 2019. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, notice of this meeting is given by way of notice filed with the Sergeant Rep and in express times, filed in the Municipal Clerk's Office and posted in Belvedere Town Hall, 691 Water Street, Belvedere, New Jersey.
This agenda is subject to last-minute additions and or deletions by the Town Council. Does council have any additions or deletions at this time?
Mayor, I have one very quick one, and it's referencing a permit issue.
Okay, we're going to put that on. Why don't you give it over your report, if you would, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, go ahead, Councilman Myers. Okay. If not, I have a couple things. We are going to have an early executive session in the beginning. We're just going to move a couple different things around real quick so we don't have people staying here all day. We're going to start with the proclamation first for Alzheimer, Parkinson's. All right, got a roll call.
Mayor Kennedy?
Here.
Councilman McIntyre?
Here.
Councilwoman Myers?
Here.
Councilwoman Napolitani?
Here.
Councilman Roth?
Here.
Councilman Tucker?
Here.
Councilman Zimigowski?
Here.
Okay, Jeff?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is a Town of Belvedere proclamation. Whereas more than 7 million people worldwide are living with Parkinson's disease, a chronic degenerative neurological disorder, and whereas there are currently no known ways to prevent or accurately predict who will develop Parkinson's disease, but scientists believe that of all the brain disorders, Parkinson's is the one closest to a cure. And whereas in the United States, an estimated 60,000 new cases will be diagnosed this year alone, and whereas there is no objective test for Parkinson's disease and the rate of misdiagnosis can be high, and whereas there is no cure, therapy, or drug to slow or halt the progression of Parkinson's disease, and whereas increased education and research are needed to help find more effective treatments with fewer side effects and ultimately an effective treatment or cure for Parkinson's disease. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Town of Belvedere Town Council hereby proclaims April as Parkinson Awareness Month in the Town of Belvedere and April 13th, 2019 as Belvedere Foxtrot Day. You are welcome.
Thank everybody. This is actually our 10th year, and it looks like it's going to be our last year. So, if you can come out April 13th and walk the alleys, 1 mile walk, or if you're a runner, 5K run, we usually have a pretty good turnout. My wife and I were just thinking about it the other day. We probably made fundraised about $70,000 for Parkinson's in the 13 years since I've had Parkinson's for 16 years, but I'm trying to shake it, so. Well, thank you, and anybody else who wants to come out April 13th, right up by the courthouse, so.
I encourage all of council, if you're available, try to make it. I've done it for several years now. Very worthwhile cause. And Al, spoke to you, and really, thank you so much for your dedication. It's been unbelievable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Val. Thanks.
I'd like a motion and a second to adopt the minutes of March 11th, 2019, workshop and executive session.
Motion.
Second.
Questions, comments, or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, we're going to move into a executive session, which I'm hoping, don't know how long it'll take, but that'll be Next up, we're going to do presentation, environmental. Cal, if you want, you can pull that podium over a little bit, make it a little easier for you.
Okay, I brought some handouts for the council.
For the public that does not know, Calvin Thompson is on the Environmental Commission along with Ms. Davis. And Robert was here. Okay.
That's a special one.
You know what, I'll make sure this is not redundant.
Oh, these are the colors. This is the color.
Okay, I'm Calvin Thompson. I'm Secretary of the Belvedere Environmental Commission as of January 2018. And what we've prepared for you is two separate documents. The first is the expected annual report. So it's a review of our activities and accomplishments of the first year of our commission. And the second document is the goals and objectives that we have stated for 2019, along with some strategies which could help us to achieve the goals. So I'll start by reviewing the annual report 2018. So January 2018, Mayor Kennedy had appointed 7 members to the Environmental Commission. This comes after a hiatus of the Environmental Commission in Belvedere. I guess a few years have gone by before we had an Environmental Commission active. So the 2018 Commission members appointed by Mayor Kennedy is Tammy Coop, Chair, Patricia Butler, Carolyn Sermon, Andreas Eisenberger, our planning board liaison, Justin Lutz, Betty Marin, and myself, Calvin Thompson, with Walter Tucka as our council liaison. So we listed in here our powers and duties taken from the Belvedere Code, and a mission statement that we prepared ourselves, actually with the help of Andreas Eisenberger. Okay. Regarding the meetings of 2018, normally the Belvedere Environmental Commission hosts our meetings here in the municipal building on the 4th Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. We were able to hold 11 official meetings in 2018, with November skipped because it happened to be right on Thanksgiving. Our first accomplishment would be the BEC being appointed. So you'll see here, for 3-year terms, it was Carolyn, Andreas, and Justin. 2-year term, Patricia Butler, Tammy Coop, Calvin Thompson, and 1-year term, Betty Marin, who has just been reappointed for extended term. So after that, our first personal accomplishment was creating a community presence. We wanted to start with a social media platform, particularly because everyone's using it. It's an easy way to get information and presence and really achieve the outreach we were looking for. So we started by giving ourselves an image and branding, so to speak, with a logo, the Belvedere Environmental Commission logo. We designed this internally for free, using some logo designer software. So it's unique to the Belvedere Environmental Commission. So we think this helped give the Environmental Commission a sleek, cool, fresh look, helping us to maintain a consistent image in all of our online presence and paper publications and any newsletter type of thing, well, you name it. So leading on from that, by March 2018, we had started the Facebook social platform. So this was a Facebook group and a page. The group is for sharing information among interested people. So everybody, it's a public group. You just have to ask to be part of it. So it's just sharing information within a closed confine. The Belvedere Environmental Commission page is what we use to share information, education, announcements, any types of environmental means, announcements about events we're doing. So we use this very heavily in addition to the Peach and local advertising to really to get our news out there. We would say that Facebook is number one, but we know not everybody is on Facebook, and it's not always the number one way to go. So we still take advantage of namely the Peach and hanging up paper advertisements around town. So you can see we had 8 months after launching, we had 150 actively engaged followers. Now we have 224 actively engaged followers. So these are people who see our posts daily, weekly, whose friends of friends see our posts just through the link, and we're able to effectively get the word out, events, accomplishments, needs, and educational information quickly. So we're working really hard to keep this going and active, because if you're not active with these kind of things, people stop paying attention to it. So we're trying to post as often as we can, 2 to 3 days max. From there, our next activity was participating in the Earth Day hosted by the Belvedere United Presbyterian Church. So this is an event they do every year in the Garrett P. Wall Park. Invites all the commissions, all types of energy, sustainable, Earth Day related vendors, including Salvation Army, who will take used equipment, etc. So this is our first time we really got, as a new commission, to interface with the public. So we set up a table in the park. We created a survey, because we really had no idea as a new commission. Only some of us on the commission were previously on Environmental Commission, but most of us have never been. So we're in a learning phase. So at the Earth Day, we took advantage of the event to create a survey, a basic 5-6 question survey with an open-ended question, just to figure out what the public wants us to do, or what they have in mind for Belvedere Environmental Commission to do. So we were able to get some interesting statistics. Of course, they were simple, but we wanted to keep it simple. And we gave out some environmental educational flyers that we collected through the Department of Environmental Protection and Fish and Wildlife. So for us, this was our first physical interface with the public. Look, here we are, Environmental Commission. We even printed out the logo on a 8x11 piece of paper and hung it on the table. Next in May, I took this chronologically. Next in May, we heard of an interesting program that was brought to the town through Kathy Luton of the Belvedere Presbyterian Church. So Kathy had found about this Trex Challenge program, which involves community soft plastics recycling. We decided to aid her in the spreading and the initiation of this program. So Kathy brought it to town, and I think the Belvedere Environmental Commission took a huge part in the promotion and support of the project. While the Presbyterian Church, Ann Rogers, Kathy Luton took the lead, we took a strong hand in using the social media to announce the rules and the spreading of the recycling containers and our accomplishments. So while we collected nearly 3,000 pounds of plastic in 7 or 8 months now, this was a collective effort. This is a type of recycling program where only one group or organization can get the credit of collecting 500 pounds of plastic every 6 months. So the way we're making this happen is a collective joint effort. So we're using multiple groups, including the Presbyterian Church, United Methodist Church, the Belvedere Ambulance Corps. Right now, Belvedere Environmental Commission are collecting specifically for ourselves. So for every 500 pounds, every 6 months, one group gets a bench made out of this Trex plastic. So Trex makes the decking that's made out of composite plastic. So we know that the plastic we're collecting in Belvedere is actually going to a place where it's really being recycled and reused, and it's something that everybody uses every day. So we can't take the credit for starting the Trex Challenge, but I think we can be proud to know that we kept it going and it's still going very strong. In fact, we're collecting way more than we can allocate to a group. So it's something to be said about how Belvedere supported the project. Next, we want to start getting into educational events, actual seminar, how-to educational events, because some of the best we can do is share knowledge, create awareness, get the public interested and involved. So thanks to Carolyn Cerbone and her contacts, we hosted a bee seminar with the help of the Community Center in Belvedere, who has hosted us many times already. So this was our first seminar. It was about bee life, bee evolution, bee habits, everything you ever wanted to know about bees. And this gentleman, Andrew Kohler, who was a beekeeper and part of the New Jersey Beekeepers Association, brought in cool bee artifacts like a beehive, a beekeeper's box, dead bees, honey for people to taste. And we had a pretty fair turnout for our first community education session of 24 attendees, which we were very happy. This is women, children, men, old men, everybody. And we counted the commission members that were there. So it was our first education event. From there, we wanted to keep up the public interface, the showing, just being out there, being wherever the public can be. So we took advantage of the Belvedere Ambulance Corps Summer Market, which was held over at the Johnson parking lot. And here we were really excited because we had a lot more education materials to share. We were just starting the Keeping It Real Off-Bound Fishing Program sign-ups, and we had a brand new shiny banner that we had Peachy Cold print for us with our new logo on it. So we were really excited to be at this event and interface with the public. So we actually had a lot of visitors. We took out a lot of information from people that were interested in assisting us, supporting us in the rest of the year. And we even handed out registration forms for our fishing program, which is slated to start now. But we started the registration collection back in the summer. So that brought us to about 2018, July. Keeping It Real is a program that Tammy had found out about through the New Jersey Fish and Wildlife, New Jersey Department of Fish and Wildlife. So this is a program that's statewide. It's called Hooked on Fishing, Not on Drugs. And each community that takes part in this type of activity or education program will slap its own name on it, but with reference to Hoffman. So we call it Keeping It Real. So the Keeping It Real, REL, is recreational, environmental, education, and leadership. So this is a fishing and wildlife education program, whereas New Jersey Fish and Wildlife actually train two or more interested people within or outside our commission. So Tammy, within our commission, and Piker Terrence had gone to a training by the Fish and Wildlife, and it was a 2-day training, a full 8 hours each day training on how to fish, on how to teach people to fish, and all the related wildlife skills and techniques you'll need to know. They were also given educational session, which we will actually reuse to teach children from ages 8 through high school. So the requirement of this program is the leaders in this educational program need to be trained, and we need enough members. I think it needs to be eight minimum children who are signed up, registered beforehand, and we need to go 22 activity sessions where we're either doing fish and wildlife education, and or teaching children how to fish. So we actually have enough registrants now, and we're kicking off the program fully March 31 for 21 weeks, every Sunday. So it's a 2-hour program every Sunday. Whoever's involved will come. We may do an educational session at the community center, walk to the river, and do some fishing. Weather permitting, if there's weather problems, we do peer education session in the community center. So while we started planning this in July, it's finally taken effect March 31st this month. And if you guys know anyone ages 8 through high school that would be interested or need something to do during the spring and summer on Sundays after church, please let us know, because we would like to make this a very successful event. From there, we make it to August 2018. Here's another opportunity for us where we want to do show public presence, either for the community, and actually do something a little more fun and educational. So we had set up some activities for children. One was a fishing game where we set up a small fishing pond, a baby pool, essentially, with fish inside with magnets and numbers. And we had a trivia wheel with different colors and numbers. The object is, if you land on any number, we ask you an educational question with multiple choice answers, and whether you get it or not, you get a prize. Yeah, the idea was to create awareness about educational points that people may not actually know. So it was actually a big hit. We had, luckily we were right next to the face painting table at the National Night Out, so we got a lot of traffic runoff from the face painting table. But it was really great. We had a lot of people there. We scored a lot of merchandise for the last Bellevue Environmental Commission, and we pretty much used it up there. But we were using it as handouts and reasons to entice people to play what they wanted to play anyway for the games. So we thought it was a really effective, fun night, and it was actually educational, as opposed to handing out pamphlets to people. We made people work for their gift, whether it's a bucket or a towel or whatever. So even if you got it wrong, someone still would walk away learning something interesting. So we had a lot of fun there, and we'd like to replicate that kind of educational, fun activity approach in our future community outreach efforts. Our 2018 actually ended in some training on the Environmental Commission. So we pretty much, to be honest, we winged it as an Environmental Commission. We're still gathering research, understanding what we're supposed to do. And September 2018, we decided to attend a green infrastructure training. So as part of the Environmental Commission budget, the town pays for a subscription to ANJEC, which is the Association for New Jersey Environmental Commissions. This organization supports Environmental Commission with guidance and instructions and presentations and trainings and grants and all kinds of things. So we really need to take advantage of this, other than just to take their flyers and reuse them. So we went to a green infrastructure training related to effective stormwater management. So here we learned about runoff and how to identify places with bad drainage, and the effectiveness of rain gardens, and how we can implement these kind of things in Belvedere. So we learned a lot. It was presented by a professor at Rutgers who does this kind of thing all the time, and we plan to implement some of the things we've learned over the course of this year. In October, we decided to really pursue establishing a green team. A green team is an extension of the Environmental Commission, which helps the Environmental Commission with their implement their goals, usually through the power by numbers kind of approach. And the green team is represented by students, regular town people, business people, council people, people on different boards and commissions. The idea of a green team is numbers and the variety of expertise you can have on this is actually a Sustainable New Jersey objective. Sustainable New Jersey is another organization where we follow and we work to support. So Sustainable New Jersey actually certifies environmental commissions based on actions that are accomplished. So a town could become a sustainable gold member town or bronze member town if you complete so many actions as a town, which collect points towards airline miles type. So an environmental commission said that people can't accomplish these things all on their own, so you set up a green team which will help you do it. So from October 2018, we started recruiting and spreading the word about this green team that we need. In fact, to move towards a Sustainable New Jersey certification, you have to, prerequisite is establish a green team. So we're in the progress of doing this now. We have our first green team kickoff event next month, where we plan to bring everyone together that's interested and give people tasks, objectives, and a mission for the year. Whereas we can then start moving forward with achieving that certification. In November, at the end of the year, our most important training from ANJEC came, and it was effective environmental commissions training. So here was a real rude awakening. We learned so much. It was a several-hour session on Saturday where we learned exactly what environmental commission should be doing. If we're not doing, ask why we're not doing it. They also showed us things like how to prepare an annual report, establish goals, run meetings, create that public awareness, just all kinds of great ideas and information. So at the end of 2018, we actually learned how to be effective, which is great. Going into 2019, we were prepared. So that wraps up our annual report. I can't say we managed many concrete things because we were still trying to find our way, but we were active. We were meeting every month, talking about how we can interact with the community, be a face of Belvedere, representing, getting people excited about the environment. It was a tough job. So going into this year, we actually have a baseline and we know what we need to be doing. So that brings us into the 2019 goals and objectives. We broke this out into six overall goals, which are very broad, and within those goals are possible strategies to achieve the goal. So,
Calvin, can I ask you just to read all 6 headlines on this?
yeah,
And then just briefly touch on it.
okay. The goals. So 1 through 6,
Yeah,
broadly.
yeah.
First, most important goal of any environmental commission or commission of the town is to support the mayor and the council on environmental initiatives and topics. Second goal we have is to engage, inform, and educate the community with a variety of approaches. Third, evolve the commission and pursue community partnerships. So these are partnerships with other commissions, faith-based groups, school groups, sports teams, you name it. Within the community, we need to work together and take advantage of what we have here in town. Number 4, participate in special projects and initiatives. So these are specific goals that we've already started, we have in progress, and includes the Sustainable New Jersey achievements that we have in mind, or like to accomplish. Number 5, open space protection, acquisition, improvement, and or stewardship. So this is a big topic. We know we have open space in town, and there's available open spaces, but we need to enhance the spaces that we have here in town. And there's a lot of grants out there regarding open space stewardship. So we're really focusing on this. And open space points are actually written in the Belvedere Code as one of the priorities of Environmental Commission. So we need to consider it a priority. And 6, assist in town beautification and green infrastructure initiatives. So this is linked to making Belvedere more beautiful, incorporating more trees, working with the Shade Tree Commission, using green infrastructure approaches like rain gardens, already there are our goals for 2019, with many ideas for strategies.
Excellent job. Excellent. Thank you so very much. Council, have any questions for Mr. Thompson?
Great.
You're doing a
Thank
great
you.
job.
Thank you for.
I attended my first meeting, their meeting again this Thursday. I was very impressed. They're a very dedicated group, and they work well together.
Oh, I'm excited with how much they've actually accomplished even in
Yes,
their
they
first
have in their
years.
first year.
Especially the plastic, you know, it sounds like 3,000 pounds doesn't seem like a lot.
Little
But
bags,
if
it's
you
a
say,
lot.
if you pick up a little ShopRite plastic bag and
It's
you
a lot.
associate it with three, it's a lot of bags. And I believe Reba and the Presbyterian Church has already given a bench to the high school already, correct?
Yes.
There's already, and I know they're working on it.
Yeah, the Presbyterian Church got it, but yes, we donated it to
Donated
the
to
school,
Right.
because the school has the outdoor recreation area they're gonna put in. We're trying to figure out exactly how many benches they need, and we'll
Right.
see what they get them.
Right. And if you haven't seen this bench, it's very
It's
impressive.
nice.
And I tell you,
It's very
I'd
nice.
like one.
Yeah, me too.
They are very,
Those
very
benches
nice.
sell at Lowe's or Home Depot, $539.
Yeah.
Very
Wow.
safe bench.
They're beautiful.
It'll last a long time, Jim.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
We wanted to give a special thanks to Teresa Geisley, who's been such a huge help for us. We bug her often, many times a day, sometimes on the weekends. Somehow, for some reason, she's responding on the weekends. So it's encouraging our bad behavior, but it'd be great, Teresa. Thank
Well,
you.
in 2019, I think it'll be a little less and less. Teresa has
You're
kept
getting
me
your own
informed,
feet under them, so.
and you guys have just done remarkable.
They
Tammy,
have.
unbelievable.
Yes.
And you guys are going to that breakfast, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
RSVP.
Yeah, did you send it back? Okay.
Yeah, we did. I forgot to tell you that.
Okay, good, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment, agenda items only. Any public comment, agenda items only? Councilman Tucker, would you like to start?
The reports?
Yes.
Sure. I'll start off with the Community Center Belvedere. Visitors, year-to-date, AM 27. Year-to-date events, 81. Let's see here. They're going to be starting I think they already started the second yoga class on Tuesdays. That was supposed to start on March 19th. Strategy game Saturday afternoon and Thursday evenings. And I think it's worth repeating. Mr. Thompson mentioned, and I have it down here, that the community center is hosting the environmental commission with the hooked on fishing Sundays from 12 to 2, and it's for 22 weeks, and it is for individuals from the grades 4 to 12. And I think that's a worthwhile program. Again, worth mentioning again. Self-defense starting March 15, a birdhouse contest May 18, and community book club is in the works to be starting, and they're also working on possibly, they're working on details for a national night out in August. Let's see, recreation, Spring Fling, which is supposed to be held on April 28th, it's a Sunday, from 12 to 4 at the Goodwill Firehouse. They have scheduled a car show, music, vendors, food trucks, kids' activities, garden club, and environmental or participating, and pool recreation is also, I think, working on something to possibly be there. Pool recreation, they too are working on employee roster, salaries, snack bar items, list and pricing, membership fees, coordinating work on pool with the DPW and the county work assistance program called CLAP. Board of Education, just 2 notes there. 2019-2020 budget of is slated $12,568,130 with a total appropriation of surplus having said that, tentatively, the vision for the school, per Mr. Carupo, who's the superintendent, is that they're looking to move the Board of Education administration over to Third Street School, which will open up the areas of 2 offices that they have there for classrooms. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Roy.
The emergency medical squad and the Belvedere, eventually to be in Belvedere Emergency Medical Service. As I mentioned at our last meeting, the paperwork is all prepared and submitted to the state to get their okay to go ahead for the Belvedere Emergency Medical Service. They received a note back that there's a moratorium that the state has just put on to review all of these, primarily a workload issue, and that they won't be reviewing any until April at the earliest. And the squad will resubmit after April 1st and get that in motion again. So it really is in the hands of the state as to how fast this is going to unfold. That being said, I know they had a discussion within the squad and also talking with St. Luke's about a backup plan if that became necessary. And it doesn't appear that it needs to be. The squad has rallied very well. They're handling all the calls 24/7. There were a few missed calls last month, mostly because they were busy on other calls. They had 84 calls and only 4 were missed, and I think that's an excellent result. And they really get the job done for us, at least for that. In my opinion, to say that that's a long-term process that they'll be able to handle 24/7, I don't think so. I think eventually we and most towns are going to have to go to some sort of split association of paid and volunteer, because the economics of trying to have all volunteer just is fading quickly. So I think that they're taking the right move at the right time, and it's just in the hands of the state. So I applaud them for their efforts. Grants. Mayor, you set up a meeting and that Sue attended about the possibility of grants. She's taken that and handling it personally. The paperwork has to be in July, and she's working on that. She's also going to reach out for a few other people, including Dennis Riley, who successfully got a grant for the fire department and get some things, some help from him, and she's on top of that.
So she's staying in contact with Lauren and...
Yes, she is. That is true. I also mentioned the issue of hepatitis B. OSHA requires that all volunteer responders are offered hepatitis B vaccinations as part of their requirements. Sue mentioned to me at a meeting 3 weeks ago that they had to update that within the squad, that there were a number of members that had not been offered it, but wasn't brought up at least, and they're working on getting that up to date now. The OSHA requirements say that the employee has to make sure that this is offered. We, because they're under the workers' comp, technically the employees, so we have to make sure that's done and paid for. We put a couple of $1,000s in the planning to cover those expenses. Since then, you've brought to my attention the possibility of securing these vaccinations from the Warren County Health Department at no fee, as long as the individual has no other medical insurance, either personal or through a company. And I think that's terrific. And what that'll do is that will allow us to use the monies that we put into the budget to cover ancillary costs that a particular squad member may incur. For example, if they had to use their own insurance company, they might get co-pay or some sort of fee that the insurance company doesn't cover, $50 or $100. And that would allow them to remain whole. So that money could go even farther and used in that manner. So I think that's a good thing. Let's see, the utility bills. We've had some discussions back and forth with the squad through Kathy's diligent work that some of the utility bills were being paid for by the town as opposed to being properly forwarded to the squad, and that's being worked on now and being corrected. I've been working, in fact, with Tracy Marsh on that, and they're paying bills as they come due. So that's being bit on emergency medical. The fire company, as you mentioned last time, they had to be brought up to date on the hepatitis B issues. I talked to Dennis, and they are all up to date. By coincidence, he wrote the procedure for them several years ago, and it's being followed. All the members have been offered the vaccinations. Those that have decided not to take it have signed the proper opt-out waivers, which are on file. And they offer the vaccines are offered for those people every year, and they have to opt out every year, so they have all the paperwork in place. They also have proper procedures in place to ensure that all new members, as part of their mustering in, are offered the vaccines at that point in time before they become part of the squad. So they're up to date on that. Also from the fire company, the new fire truck is here. They're now waiting for the hoses and some other fittings. There's no date yet scheduled for the hose down and the introduction to the town. I suspect in the late spring. But they'll let us know. That's it for the fire company. Public utilities. We met with the folks from JCP&L, and they would like to do a pilot program to introduce LED lighting within the town, and we're working with them to develop a program, a pilot program. And the pilot program, talking in a high level, would be to install it on a series of 13 poles, probably down in a business district, and allow the townspeople to comment on it. What do they think about it? Render their opinions before we go any further. And if it gets good results, then we'll begin a process of introducing it throughout the town over a long-term plan. And the reason to do this is it'll save us money. LED provides the same or better lighting at much less the cost. So it will be beneficial to the town.
Correct. And the conversion to the LED head is no cost to the taxpayer.
That's true. It will be no cost to us. So that's just unfolding now. There'll be more to come on that in the future. That's it.
Thank you. And I will add from an environmental perspective, converting to LEDs, if this is what the public and council decides to do. We're eliminating all of those gases coming out of the current lighting system that you have right now. I'm sorry, the name slips, what type of bulb it is.
Mercury?
It's a mercury gas type bulb. Yeah. So, thank you, Councilman Myers.
I met with Mayor Kennedy last week with the Municipal Alliance coordinators to try and understand how our grant program had kind of not been properly funded. And we realized that Harmony's just kind of had their money aside, not sending it our way. So we're also looking at perhaps having the program expanded. They had come in, the woman who was here that day was talking about seniors as well as drug and alcohol programs for kids in school. So we're looking, we have the contract through June of 2019. And at some point we wish we'll take a look at having Harmony monitor it, or how we want to change it to involve more people in the community. And we'll be discussing the capital part of our budget for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you. And just to tail on Councilwoman Myers as far as the Municipal Alliance, as we started to take a harder look at some of the new bills coming in, we discovered some receipts and whatnot for water potato chip credit, which kind of intrigued me as to what that had to do with it. So after taking a look, as Councilwoman Myers said, the grant is given to us by the county.
Also, a variance for a small porch was approved for residents on 4th Street. Calvin, you did a great job this evening. It was a pleasure to have attended my first environmental meeting, and I will be meeting with them this Thursday. The Shade Tree Commission, they did meet to reorganize, and so did the Historic Commission, they met to reorganize. You did reorganize, correct?
No,
Oh, you did not meet?
4 people show up,
Oh, okay.
same 4 every month.
Oh, okay.
Did you have
And
a
there
quorum?
are, there are,
Pardon me?
Did you have a quorum?
Yeah,
Then you reorganized.
yeah. Who is your chair, Pat?
No.
Ray,
Oh, I'm
Ray.
Ray, Snickle.
Okay, okay.
We understand one member has moved.
Oh, okay.
Would you like him to be replaced, just bring
You
me a
got
name?
another Ray to replace him with?
Well, we'll have to find a name. Anybody knows a good carpenter, let me know.
Okay, but at this time, there are no applications, correct?
No.
Okay. Okay, Mayor, just very quickly, as you know, I am a commissioner at Puma, and at our most recent meeting, there was an issue that came up, and they have asked me to address the council on it because it's a Belvedere sewer issue. The Belvedere sewer plant is experiencing high flows, and they feel that illegally hooked up sump pumps to the sewer system is one of the problems. The flows have doubled. The DEP does monitor flow on a rolling average, and once you reach 80% of your permitted flow, you fall into capacity assurance, which is a whole program limiting connections and looking at your I&I. After several months go by and your number keeps rolling, you fall into what they call a regulatory issue. So I was asked, could we have inspections of our target area of sump pumps to see what the connection hookups are? And if they're illegally hooked up, we would like them to be funded. Okay?
I will discuss that with Councilman McRotsky
Exactly.
later on.
Thank you. And now,
Councilman Actora.
Okay, for the police department, the chief has been working with the state police, and this is in reference to the live scan. We understand that the software company that we're using now is going to terminate the support as of the end of June. So the question is, do we spend $22,000 or about $11,000? Again, the chief is working with the state police. We've also hopefully reached out to the prosecutor's office. The difference being, when you have sex offenders in the municipality have to be re-registered every year, and they have to have palm prints. So in order to have a palm print scanner, it's like $22,000. According to the state, we have to have it. My argument is, if the state's mandating it, at the very least, for the 12 and 14 sex offenders that we have in the municipality, we should be able to send them to the prosecutor's office. So let the prosecutor's office pay the extra $10,000 for the palm scanner that we're not going to use that much. We'll pay for what they call the 10 print, which is $10,000, which we use all the time. So anyway, that's something the chief's working on, and I'm sure you're going to hear more about it, especially during the budget, because if we do have to spend that kind of money, it's a capital improvement, and we'll talk about it. The other thing I want to talk about other than that, the chief had, is he sent me the statistics, and I know if we go back a couple of years ago, nobody knew what the police department was doing. Nobody would ever say how many calls, whatever, call service. And this all started with people were complaining, well, they're not enforcing parking, or they're not enforcing speeding, or they're not doing drug arrests, or not. We have probably the most busiest police department in Warren County. When you consider that we have 5 officers working plus an active chief. And to back that up, for 2018, I'm looking at the number here, we had 4,105 active entries just through the 911 system. All right? Number of investigations per officer. Now last year, if you think about it, we had one officer that was going through the academy for 5 months. We had another officer that was sick, he was injured for 6 weeks. They still averaged about 330 invests each for the year. It's an insane number for law enforcement. So all I can say is I can go through the numbers and they're all readily available. Maybe we'll put a web page out there so you guys can see this. But when you see the numbers of calls of service that they do and what they do, it's astounding. And you wonder how they get anything done other than running from call to call. So if you want to be critical of one officer or another, or this one not doing this or that. Trust me, these officers are extremely, extremely busy versus the other municipalities in Warren County. I'm just going to throw out some numbers. This is, again, for 2018, the total year. Criminal mischief, some of the things get different, how they categorize it. Again, this is coming through the 911 system. This isn't anybody that came into the office or anybody that contacted an officer directly. This is just things through the CAD system through Warren County. Criminal mischief, 17. Overdoses, 10. We get into suicides was on here somewhere, and it's in, I think it was like 6. So it's a very alarming number. Disorderly conduct, 64. Alarms, 105. Some of the bigger numbers. Suspicious activity, 70, there's 30. Suspicious auto, 79. Suspicious person, 54. Down wires, fires, 55. There was a thing in here, medical assist, I thought that was very interesting. Lockouts, 29. Medical assist, 281. And, we have the first aid squad here, they can attest. A lot of times the first person to respond is your officers, and they have medical assist. So that's what you're paying for. You're paying for somebody to be there instantaneously. I would say that most of the officers can respond to virtually any call, and you can attest to this maybe 4 minutes, 3 minutes. They're right there. So, again, I'm obviously touting, how good of a job they do. I think they're outstanding. And these numbers are available, and like I said, maybe we can put them up on the webpage so everybody can look just through the 2018 numbers and see what you have. But other than that, the chief had nothing else. He gave me January and February stats. I'm not going to sit here and go through them all. But, they're very, very active men, and that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you. Council, big jobs.
Okay, DPW, for a couple issues here, we're still waiting on the weather. As far as getting the park across the street done, as soon as things dry out, and if we get a couple days or maybe a week without rain, it'll be dry enough to get some equipment down there and finally finish that park. So let's cross our fingers there. Potholes, I know everyone's been commenting about potholes. Asphalt plants should be opening up probably next week, and then we can start to see some of them get filled in. The guide rails, the guardrails that are damaged throughout the town, replacement has begun, so we should probably see that within the next month completed. A brush pickup will be formally scheduled most likely the first 2 weeks in May. Keep an eye on the website for further detail on that, but it'll be for 2 weeks, and hopefully it gets out this week. Everyone get a chance to see it, notice it, and know that that's their window to get their brush to the curb. The retention ponds are near completion as far as the vegetation being cleared from them. Once on the one on Liberty Street, a bunch of garbage was noted after the vegetation was cleaned out, and Jason is scheduling a team to clean the garbage up there.
Is that going to be from the prison?
Yeah. So community service, something like that. So then the other thing here for them is that list of poles for flag permits. Do you want this?
I need that, yeah.
Okay. That's for the flags. So, and then last item, once again, weather-wise, trying to get the rest of the striping done from the paving projects by the courthouse.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, in terms of the guardrail, any
Yep.
of that was damaged as a result of an accident?
Yes.
If we can get those reports from Chief Scott, we can submit to the insurance carriers and get reimbursed for that.
We have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That kind of motivated the repairs. We finally getting the check. So
Okay.
And who's going to do the striping around the courthouse? Is the county?
the DPW's work.
I thought the county was going to do that for us.
I did not hear that.
Double check it.
Okay.
Speak to Alex.
Okay.
Am I
That's
correct?
That's,
I heard nothing else.
When we met, before the project started, he said the county would do the striping and the parking spots.
okay,
Do
okay.
you remember that?
I do remember now since you mentioned it, sorry.
Okay.
But I'll give you plenty of other areas that have it.
Yeah.
I did get some information about a
this, and it came up in the context of it, I think your son actually had approached Joe Rossi about renting some space for a combination of, I guess, a coffee roaster and associated retail. Believe it or not, that property, although there's a bunch of retail and professional uses, that is a light manufacturing zone.
The big red
It's
barn.
the big red barn, and it's only, believe it or not, your light manufacturing, so I checked with Paul, your light manufacturing zone only has 4 lots in it. It's lots 3.01, 19, and 27. I think it's most of it is the big building right across the street from the red barn as well.
St. John's.
St. John's, yes. So the bottom line is the actual roasting could technically be manufacturing, that would be fine. But if you tried to have, serve coffee and sell the beans, you have a retail use.
Right.
And so Paul's suggestion is, look, the time is probably come and gone on light manufacturing. So he and I have discussed it, and there's 2 ways you could go about it if you're interested. And I think maybe you should. One is to send a letter to the planning board, asking them to initiate a short, sweet re-examination study of that LM district to see whether it should be supplemented with retail uses or perhaps revised entirely. I like that approach because the re-examination, then whatever we do ordinance-wise would then be consistent with a revised master plan. The other thing I like about it is we, as a council, have talked about, the Airbnb ordinance is still floating around, if you recall, never formally adopted. We've had some general discussions that kind of came up with the property which we just lost to the FEMA acquisition. The fact that there was actually there were purchasers in that property that were interested if it could be converted to 2-family, it would require use variance. And as I understand, again, speaking with Paul, somewhere along the line, 2-family has been eliminated throughout this town. It's nowhere. So, in any zone. And again, some of these nicer Victorians and things could be more viable, at least from an investor standpoint, and we would maybe have less of that concern about them being torn down, et cetera. So there's a couple things I think that would be nice to throw into a short, these aren't expensive things, but the planning board would engage Paul, you do a re-examination report, and come back with some recommendations and some ordinance changes. I think that's the way to go. Or you could, the second option, which to me is a little bit less preferable, maybe slightly quicker, would be to simply, at this board level, initiate a proposed zoning ordinance change to some type of business use, like a business zone, business/retail. Send it to the planning board. I think they'd probably be compelled, though Paul and I kind of agree, they'd probably be compelled to deem that ordinance inconsistent with your current master plan. And then at that point, we could adopt it anyway, the supermajority, then you have to notify every property owner within 200 feet, and procedurally, it's just a little more cumbersome. And I don't think there's any real reason to avoid the little mini re-examination. That's what most boards do. So that's what I discussed with the mayor. I said, well, I would throw that out here at the council tonight. And again, it's really initiated at the board level, but if you guys are interested in doing that, I could direct a letter if there's a consensus to do that to them, asking them to take a look at these.
Well, I will only say one thing. We've been striving to pride ourselves on being consistent with everything we do. So I don't believe in taking shortcuts. So if to be consistent is going to take longer, then that's what I would recommend. Coleman, your first recommendation.
Yeah, and I said, I think Paul and I are on the same page with that. I think that's the cleanest way to do these things.
So you would direct a letter to the planning board?
If you guys authorize me to do that, I'll direct a letter asking them to do a re-examination of the LM zone.
Right.
Potentially take a look, again, if you guys are interested, potentially, again, they have to decide. This is part of their, Walt has asked many times about coordination with their planning board. This is a classic example. We send a letter and asking them to take a look at the LM zone.
Right.
Part of that, Paul, would probably do an inventory of the existing uses there. And again, there's already, there's a rehabilitation center there, there was a dry cleaner there, there's been a bunch of retail/professional uses there. So your uses aren't matching the zone as it is. So I think it's a perfect time to interested, ask them to take a look at whatever zones they might feel are appropriate for two-family, and also throw into the reexamination report the Airbnb bed and breakfast concept. That ordinance has actually been drafted, but it kind of died, frankly, when Des moved away. It was this close to going forward. I think there was some support for it, but I like the idea of throwing all those things into one reexamination report, that anything we do matches our master plan.
Makes sense.
How many pieces of property are there that's in question?
In that LM zone, there's only 4 lots. It's a very
Where's the
small
lots
zone.
located?
It's the big red barn and right in that area, they're all contiguous.
The red barn, you mean?
The
On
mill,
the corner here.
the old mill.
The old mill.
Oh, yeah. All right, that's
that
cool.
one, yeah, and I don't, the other 3 are all contiguous right around that. I think
And what, businesses, at a time, or?
one of them, I don't know, is there any manufacturing at all there?
What about the guy with the cabinet
No
shop?
idea.
I mean, he's not there anymore, I don't think.
Yeah.
Where's
He's
that?
sold.
I know
Next
Spec,
before
I
that
know Spec
place.
Tech
Oh, I
is in
know.
the back. Spec Tech is the military vehicle company in the back. That's,
Well, if
That's
you,
not really light manufacturing, is it?
you know what I can do, Walt?
I have no idea.
I could send you, I can forward you Paul's suggestions. I think he attached a map that shows you the 4
Well,
lots.
that's-
But it's a, my
That's
point is, it's
2
a
of
small
the 4,
piece.
right? Where are the other 2?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
Kevin just said he will forward you a copy.
And they're businesses, or were businesses, or?
There are 4 lots that
Makes sense.
are currently zoned light manufacturing that my general understanding is, and you guys live in town, I don't know, there may be some very small manufacturing component for somebody small, but
But there's an existing building
There's
on the
existing-
lots?
yes. So what Paul would probably do is inventory whatever buildings are on these 4 lots and kind of report back, hey, this is what they're effectively being used for. How do we best conform our zoning to the way your town's developed? And that, in statutorily, just by the way, you're required by statute to do a reexamination every 6 years for this very reason. But, you know, when somebody comes along and you can kind of see something getting outdated, you can do it at any time. It's a statutory procedure, walk that the planning board would have no problem.
Can you send us all a copy of?
Yeah, I'll forward that. Yeah,
Everybody, but do not reply. Just send everybody a copy, so.
I can send it to Teresa.
Yeah, so we know where they're at.
Yep. So is that?
What is council's
Do we want to make
pleasure?
Make
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that, council proceeds and sends a letter to the mayor.
I would second that.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. I abstain, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Okay, I will do that. I'll be Teresa with the letter as well.
What would the next step be? I mean, they're just planning board's gonna look at it, correct? Or Paul Sturgeon's planning board,
Well,
make recommendations?
if the planning board agrees with our suggestion, that's a good time to take a look at this, to authorize Paul to do a little reexamination study. Again, it's not, this is not like a redevelopment study where it's thousands of dollars. It should be short and efficient, but report back to the board, and then the board can probably, again, as you can see with the recreational vehicle ordinance, I always work well with the board attorney, Steve Grunberg, and Steve would probably draft an ordinance that the board would like to see, and ship it up here and say, guys, what do you think? That's what,
Do we have any idea what it's gonna run for Paul Sturgeon's to do this?
I'm sure the board can discuss that with him, but as I said, this is not a full-blown, the complete reexamination report that we do every 6 or 7 years, as I said, this would be.
Well, maybe give us an idea if he's gonna give us give us a ballpark, so we know what we're dealing with.
We can
The
definitely.
land use board, it come out of the land use board budget anyway, so we can ask them that, obviously.
Thank you.
I think that was it on that.
Any other questions or concerns? Got your votes? Correct.
Yeah, you do.
We're all done with that.
Abstain.
Okay, we
Roads, let's pave roads,
Yep.
so.
Did you tally that number when we went around? Because I took a rough tally of what it was.
60.
Okay. So Mr. Migrotsky needs $60,000 to do the road work that he'd like to address. Councilman Agatora?
The only thing we have pending is, again, the live scan, which would potentially be about 22,000. And unfortunately, we don't have any say in it, we're just waiting to hear back.
Okay.
Another unfunded mandate, that's why they're supposed to have that council. They don't seem to ever call anything an unfunded mandate. But does anybody challenge it? That really is a classic example where the regulations causing us to spend money.
That's why we're reaching out to the state police. It just doesn't make sense. You know, the state police is in charge of this. They hire a third-party vendor, then the vendor decides to pull the plug, so now everybody's on the hook for another $10,000 to $20,000. It just doesn't make sense. But
Does the
you know, we're
prosecutor,
working on it. Pardon me?
does the prosecutor's office have one of these?
No, they don't have any of them, from what I understand. They don't even have what they call a temporary. So,
How is it that the main law enforcement agency in the county doesn't
good
have
question.
the tools?
I don't know. I don't have that answer. My personal opinion is they should have it, and they should be their chief law enforcement officer for the county. At the very least, especially the small municipalities, they should be able to at least, but again, the chief's working on it, we'll see what we can do.
Can't pass the cost on to the offenders?
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
And the sheriff's department is none of this, right?
No.
There are how many small police departments, all of whom are in the same, not the we are.
Not
really.
Understand, if we didn't have any of this equipment, every time they would arrest somebody, they have to put it somewhere else, another municipality. And there's a lot of that going on, with shared services. But the palm print is, this is a federal mandate, by the way, that, is being passed through the states. It's actually federal.
I think we heard them all up into a van and take them all at one time. I'm good.
Take a road trip.
I'm okay.
Take a road trip. You want-
You're giving Teresa a hard time here.
No, I'm serious, we just
Kevin has a much better.
take them all to one police department to where they have the equipment at one time and do it all at one time.
Sunbird should have it, don't they? It should be.
Pardon?
Sunbird should have it, yeah.
Well, you really thought
That's right.
Oh, sure.
What would we call this, our annual sex offender registry day?
We'll just get the county bus.
None of my
But-
positions are.
Any financial needs, capital needs?
Teresa's for the,
Yeah, I had requested 21,225, and that was several computers and the recording system.
But that's in our budget.
No, those are capital items.
These are just capital items.
Those are capital items.
they were requested on her budget submission.
Okay.
Yes, below the
And
total.
what was your total then?
21,225.
Mr. Roth?
Nothing.
Nothing. Councilman Tucker?
The only thing I can think of, and I don't know if this is the time to bring it up, but the addition to the police department, that would be where they hold individuals and so forth. I understand, and maybe Councilman McAtora can clarify that we're working on a waiver basis for eventually, not unlike the 3rd Street School, which ran out of waivers for the handicap and so forth. And this is why I bring it up, because it's almost as if, kicking a can down the road, but eventually, construction doesn't get cheaper. And are we setting anything aside for that? Because that's going to become a reality sooner than later.
Yes, and there is some money that, as we continue to grow the fund balance, but my vision for this year on that project, and I haven't spoken to Councilman McAtora yet, but as we move forward with the reevaluation part of the capital, we're also going to look at getting prices and price quotes. I think we have to first define exactly what it Yes.
It's gonna be every bit of $100,000.
So at that point, the town engineer is gonna be involved, write the specifications on it, and we all know that there's 15% cost on top of that, based on historic history, for them to do that and follow it all the way through. So, my plans for an answer to your question, Councilman Tutka, is that process is gonna start this year in the form of paperwork and bids and specs.
What, do we have a drop dead date of when the waivers run out? I know
It's a 5-year,
What's that?
we have a 5-year extension right now.
5
We're in
years,
the first year, so we got at least 4 more years yet.
at least 4 more years. And I thought, help me with this, what did you say, 40 to 100,000?
I have no clue.
Oh, okay.
And that's what makes it such
Because
a
I
pain.
heard of a number
Yeah.
that I thought was like
Yeah.
250.
That was a number that an individual gave us 2 years ago.
Right, yeah, so
Yeah.
we're,
Yeah, that was
But that was a Cadillac.
that was kind of a,
So again, if we stay with the success that we've created over the last 3 or 4 years, and we make the effort to reserve that money and pay as we go, knowing that we have that 4 years, which quite frankly, I didn't know we had, but we should put it off to the 4th year. But it gives us the ability now to make sure we get the money in the right trust and the right capital improvement fund, so we don't get ourselves back into a situation of A, bonding, and B, going back to the taxpayers again for more money.
just to back up real quick, on the capital expenditures, we did have the camera in there, right? Is that gonna be a capital expenditure? The camera?
How much was that for?
It was like 5,500?
It was not, it was in the budget.
It was. I just wanted to make sure it was in
No,
there.
no, it's in the budget.
Okay,
But it's
sorry.
not a capital,
Okay.
we left that in the budget.
Okay, so
And
we'll,
wait, I have one
go ahead.
question. Out of Fifth Street, did you get any quotes from Paul on
Well-
what our part would be and what his engineering cost would be? The last, when we did Second Hardwick Street, we put his engineering costs in capital.
Okay,
So all you need is, his engineering costs for Fifth Street, if we're gonna go ahead
okay.
with the grants this year. And what our match would be.
Yeah, his proposal,
I-
because it's a.
I guess that might, that might be different, whether or not we had, get the grant for the whole street or not.
Never, I haven't heard back, I know
Right,
we got the grant for part of it.
Right, we're waiting till, I think, just after the 1st of April to get that answer.
So next meeting, we should have those figures.
Yeah,
Because this 60,000 is over and above Fifth Street.
yeah, that would be additional, no relation to. that grant process.
Non-grantable.
Non-grantable projects, yeah.
Okay.
okay, well, thank you, everybody, on the discussion of the capital improvements. I'll just let you know, some of the numbers I got here, capital improvement fund available for 2019 is $156,242.53. We also have a capital fund balance of $41,038, and that money, I'm going to recommend that we continue to build that capital fund balance as we move towards the PD conformity that we need. That'll give us a chance to build that up to take care of most of that. We also have reserve for sale of municipal assets of $127,378.66, which we intend to utilize in 2019's budget. 116,000 of it to pay off our 2020 debt this year, which will leave $11,123.66 in the reserve for municipal assets. Again, as we discussed earlier, by doing that, along with the bond that we paid off last year, $65,300, along with the $117,000 bonds that we're paying off this year and for next year, forget about fund balance or anything, that alone is going to put you in a positive of $184,000 starting off next year, by not having this debt on your books anymore. So, as Mr. Mooney explained, with the building of fund balance and the sales of auction items and stuff we're going to have this year, I anticipate your fund balance at the end of this year will be very surprising again to start off the next year. Okay. very hard with the DPW this year and gets them focused a little bit in a different manner. We had spoke about any particular fund balance that may be left in the DPW budget this year to give them a goal, whatever that budget is remaining. We should take that and we should reserve that in a trust fund for specific vehicles in the future. You may not need it this year, next year, or the year after. But anybody that works there that way to maintain that budget, it's a good way to start reserving some of that money. We all know what happens comes November, you know. So, again, I'll say it again this year. It's up to us to be vigilant on our individual budgets and control them the best we can. One of the best ways to do that, what I recommended to Jason, the gentleman in charge, and Adam, is to request from the CFO a vendor's report from a couple of your main vendors for this first quarter. So I've asked him to ask for a vendor report from 2017, 2018, and 2019. I'll use NAPA as an example, so they know if they're focusing on reducing that spending. Let's say, for instance, they asked for that report from January 1st, 2017 to March 31st of 2017, 3 solid months. I want to know what we spent with those vendors on that first quarter. Then I want them to take and get that same report from January 1st of 2019 through March 31st of 19 as well. So I want to see the difference in control of spending. And that's a good way to see if...
Yeah, since you bring it up, one thing, I don't know if it'll be on this bills list, but at some point you're going to notice a item on the bills list, Wilson Products. You see Wilson Products every single billing cycle, on and on and on. And it says rental fees, settling bottles or whatever. I had Jason get the price to get rid of, I think right now they rent 3 different sets. They're going to get rid of 2 of them, keep one, purchase it, and they'll own it and it'll be done. It'll be a non-reoccurring bill. So,
the
I
action...
can just say, be very careful with that vendor and make sure that it doesn't continue when you do not have something. Puma had an issue and found we were billed for 4 years on something we didn't have. Well, it was very, let's just say, it should have been better oversight should have been there. It's been taken care of, but they had taken this piece of equipment back.
Yes.
We paid for it every month for
Right.
4 years, to the tune of $3,200.
Just to update you a little bit, Jason did bring that to my attention after he spoke to you. I'm very happy with the way that you handled it. I only have one exception to the way that it was handled, and it's not Jason's fault or anybody else's fault. But here's a vendor, similar to what Councilman Napolitano is saying.
They just get
Here's a
billings.
vendor that we rented 2 or 3 bottles from them all year long for over 10 years now, okay, at a cost of $804 a year. So we've expended over $8,000 in the vendor that showed up once they would fill up the bottle. So what you got to understand, the monthly fee was just for the bottle rental. It wasn't for the settling.
That's right.
It wasn't for the, so we've paid over $9,000 over the last 10 years. When Jason came to me and he said, here's a price for the bottles for Wilson Product, they want $666. Needless to say, I lost it. We paid that $666 for those bottles 10 times already. So I do have a phone call into Wilson Product. I spoke to the one guy there. He knows I wasn't very happy. He hasn't returned my call yet. Why?
Probably laughed at me.
So my point is, you know, I would think even as a courtesy, you know, you've paid for those bottles already. You know, I mean, I know how business works. But anyway, we're addressing the issue to see if we can get a bottle or 2 donated rather than having to buy it.
Councilman, can I just, are you?
Yes.
Zimbrowski, I also understand, expensive, very expensive.
That's done.
Well, I understand from what he said, that they're gonna give him the option of having him for a year without a charge now. They could let it go, but they're having problems with the locks
Right.
themselves. They're very, very touchy, very sensitive.
Yeah, no, we're getting rid of them altogether. Yeah,
Yeah.
they try to sales pitch, we'll give them to you free for the year,
Yeah.
blah, 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 so.
Well, it wasn't just the locks, it was, what was it, the data to monitor the locks
Okay.
for a yearly basis was.
Yeah, but it was a bad investment, you know, from the past, and, you know, it's been nothing but problems, so.
Yeah, so
They're going
he's
away.
working in the right direction.
Yeah.
I even talked to him, I said, that's fantastic, because that was, well.
Okay, let's set a date for the introduction, for the budget.
Yeah,
Teresa, what do you got?
well, I don't know,
Give you 2 days.
the
First
8th
meeting
through
or
the
second?
22nd, so.
April 8th or April 22nd?
For the introduction.
Yeah, do you have something you need to firm up on the 8th, or not? Are we good?
Yeah, there's been no feedback.
Yeah.
Capital is outside
I think we're
budget,
good.
so I think we're good.
So we're good. Okay, then we'll contact Mr. Mooney and anticipate introducing on the 8th. Okay? Sounds good?
And I'm just gonna check with him just to see if I can find a little something, someplace to get that down to a solid 2 instead of 1.21. But if I find anything, I'll definitely make sure everybody's notified for the approval on that. I'd much rather do 2 instead of 1.21. I'm also asking council's permission to allow me to sit with our legal counsel here and draft up a letter to the Board of Education and the school board. I've been pretty in tune over the last few months on what's going on there, talking to several people, a couple on the board, a couple off the board. Councilman Tuck alluded to the fact that they had $300, it's actually $300,000 when he was speaking in reference to the 3rd Street School. Am I correct on that?
300,000.
It's 300,000, not $300. Right. So I want to draft a letter, and I'm going to address it to all the Board of Education members, and I'm going to ask them to reduce the school board budget by 4 cents this year. Given the fact that they have that $300,000, given the fact that they got additional state aid and I believe $34,000 or $38,000 this year. An anonymous, you gotta like this one, Walt. An anonymous board member came to me and actually said to the school board, why don't we give it back to the taxpayer? Because a couple of them were saying, oh, well, we could do this, we can do that. So that individual said, you know, why don't we give it back to the taxpayer? So if council don't have a problem, I'm gonna send the school board a letter. That will at least, what that will do is if the Board of Education reduced it by 4 cents, I mean, I won't tell you what I'd be happy with, but I'm gonna go for 4 cents. And what the town of Belvedere is doing with the county reduction, at least this year, the residents of Belvedere will notice the reduction in their taxes with all 3 entities. As we know, as hard as anybody tries for one entity to work real hard and the other 2 just to continue raising, you never really see or realize the savings. So we have an opportunity this year, for the first time in a long time, of being able to get the 3 entities across the board so we could see it. So does anybody have any objection to that?
Mayor, can I speak?
Yes.
One of the things I didn't bring up, I will bring up now, working with Mr. Blum's ad hoc committee on enrollment and the school. Now, again, this isn't set in stone that this is exactly what they're going to do, but they are closing the 3rd Street School, but they're going to keep it open for administrative offices. Having said that, you're looking at renovation to the high school for classes, 1. There may be an addition to the middle school, 2. And 3 is the renovations to 3rd Street to accommodate. I don't know if they're going to just use the offices that are there, I don't know. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because
possibilities are there, and they are possibilities at this time. They're not items that are actually scheduled at this point, but I do agree at some point they are going to do that. And I'm very well aware that they will be occupying Third Street School for approximately 1 year. They haven't made any long-range plans yet, because I was actually invited into their executive session a couple of weeks ago. And specifically, they asked me what my opinion was. And I said, sell it, don't sell it to another school, and don't sell it to a church. And it's not that I have anything against the church whatsoever, or the county. When they decide to sell that building, whether it's a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, it will be much welcome revenue coming back into the town. So everybody really got to be open-minded to that. I will tell you that they did mention to me that St. Patrick's was an interested party at one time, but they were interested from a point of renting it, not actually purchasing it. So I voiced my opinion very strongly to let's please try to get it back on our tax rolls. So,
Excuse me, Mayor, can I just ask, the year for, or the reasons for 1 year, because there's something on the books that they're supposed to, I guess, you know, as far as give it 1 year.
It's just not easy getting.
No, right, so it's on the books.
That is correct.
Having said that, I mean, I hate to, and again, sell it, that's one thing. But with the Caisson project going on, it's a catch-22. You sell it and then you're going to be scrambling to either put an addition on somewhere.
Well, I'll tell you the same recommendation I mentioned to them, Mr. Tucker, the same recommendation I mentioned to them, I'll tell you here. One is I'm recommending a reduction in taxes to the
I have no problem.
residents, at least for this year. I've also recommended to them to take any assets from the sale of that property in that building, is to put it into a trust fund specifically earmarked for any additions or alterations that need to be done in the future or near future in order to accommodate those students. And not just blindside us with pulling the bank forward because they want to put it's like anything else we do here. We're working hard to be very conservative and smart with our money. So they have ample time right now to create these funds and these trust funds. And there's no better place than to secure that money in a trust fund rather than grabbing something from a wish list, you know. So anyhow, thank you very much for that. Any new business? Resolution number R 2019-X20, a resolution to refund a tax overpayment. I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Motion?
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I have no ordinances, I have no appointments. Authorization to pay the bills.
Make a motion, we pay the bills as presented.
Second.
Questions, comments, or corrections?
I just have 2 questions. I did check with DPW, the tree work, for $6,405. Do we know what that's done from?
Yes,
Yes.
it was encumbered last year. It was the quotes that were done for trimming and for takedowns.
So
And
it was
the
the
money,
work that was done last
there
year?
was money that was encumbered last year.
Oh, okay.
And it's out of last year's budget money. It was encumbered, work was done, bill was submitted.
Okay. And the only other thing is I'm looking at, I have a call in to JCP&L, and it's about one of the, well, there's actually 2 bills for electric, and I haven't gotten a call back yet, but yeah, I may share the one with Councilman Roth as far as, but that's about it.
Okay. Please explain the 2 bills that you have questions on. JCP now.
The one would be account 10042718111. This is for it's a bill we pay for. It's not under the high school. It's the basketball area right next to it for the lights. And I don't know, that might be one that maybe it should be under the high school.
Well, I'm actually glad you
there was a question on it and so
Okay.
forth. Matter of fact, maybe what I'll do is, because I have a pretty good list on bills and as far as
You
what
think?
we're paying versus what. And Councilman Roth is familiar with what I brought up at the
Mhm.
CCB, and that was utilities.
Mhm.
And correct me, Councilman Roth, what was mentioned that they, what, was it for the first year, they weren't gonna be charged, it was kinda, what was it?
Yeah, they weren't being charged, and they talked to the JCP&L folks, and they said, I don't know about it.
Oh, no, that was Comcast for the Wi-Fi. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because, and I mentioned it at the meeting, it's, the reason that they were given a waiver, so to speak, is because it's listed under library, and it's not. And I voiced my opinion that that could come back and bite us. So I left it with Mr. Young, but then the other utilities, sewer, water, phone, electricity. Now, the way Mr. Young explained it, again, Councilman Roth, so it's not what I heard, but.
Well, that is said to the properties under the town, and we pay.
Right, well, he mentioned that they were given like a waiver from us for the first year, but then you may maybe be paying for it eventually.
I believe that was the discussion we had. Council, anybody have any question on that? That 2018, we were taken care of?
Yeah, that was my understanding.
So what's your next question?
Oh, what? No, it's just,
What's going on?
I'm not gonna go
For
through all of it.
2019, is that your question?
Well, for 2019, so then in other words, we're gonna put the bill for the CCB then.
Well, I think that's something, if you'd like council to discuss, I think that's an appropriate item for council to discuss.
Oh, well, right now you'd like to discuss it?
Throw it out there.
Well, I just did.
That's your
I
priority.
just did. And here, let me just back up a little bit. The idea was I could recall Mr. Young standing here and mentioning that, that this wasn't going to cost the town a dime, I think it was. And you know what? He was absolutely right. It wasn't a dime. Because when you look at the sewer, the electric, the phone, all that you're talking,
What's it come up to? What kind of money?
What's that?
What kind of money does it come to?
I have the most current one for, let's see, I can tell you right now. Let's see, CCD. Well, one is the sewer bill we know, which brings up another question. Is that standard practice we pay all the utilities for, as far as for sewer, right up front, Teresa, right at the beginning of the year for the whole year?
For our bills, yes.
Okay.
Bills for the town.
Meaning, okay.
Town hall, the DPW, the former library, which is a building that we own, the squad building, or the scout home.
Right, which, that's the other thing about the scout home and what that, I guess you could say for another day, the amount that we pay in fuel oil.
We own the scout home.
I know that we own it, it's just, I guess it's something we can look into as far as the amount of use that the scout home gets versus what we pay for.
Okay, so my,
Yeah, that's a whole nother.
Well, that's what I'm saying, I'm just saying, I thought you kind of opened it up.
well, no, whoa. Slow down, guys, slow down.
Sure.
They are the same thing, okay? We own the community center, we own the scout home.
Right.
Mr. Tutka has issues with us assisting paying bills for the community center for the community residents. He has an issue with us paying bills for the scout home and the scouts.
Right.
Okay.
The,
Go ahead, Mr. Tutka.
The community center, I think I have it somewhere here. They have some 5,000 in their budget from the last meeting. So it's not like they're not collecting monies, with different activities.
Okay,
But
let me
yeah,
clarify. I hate to interrupt you, but let me clarify that.
Sure.
They do not have $5,000 in their budget. They have $5,000 in the recreation bank account. Not in their budget, they have $5,000.
And it's for the community center.
Go ahead.
Right, it's for the community center. So, again, you're looking at where can we possibly save money. That's something you can look into, right? Whether they could start to help out. Again,
but you don't have a monthly figure or a quarterly figure for what you're gonna ask them for.
Well, each bill, I mean, we have the bills. I
No,
have,
but because they generate their own money,
oh, right.
that they would, in fairness, they would need to know what we're expecting them to pony up for.
Right, I don't have the total right here. I mean, I was just looking, mentioned, one concerns, sewer again, which we know is what, 155 a quarter. Electric, which runs about $77. Let's see, phone, I think was like $60, $70 a month. So it adds up pretty quick.
Okay, so,
Can't wait till we charge these scouts.
What's that?
we'll get into that next. All right, so what is your recommendation, and do you have a motion to bring to the floor?
I think we already have a motion on the floor to pay the bills.
Well, that's right, we got a little
Oh,
distracted.
you're right, I'm sorry. Well, you're right, my apologies. Any other questions or comments on bills? We'll do.
No. If anything, as they come up, I'll bring them up. I think it's interesting that.
Let me
Let's
interrupt.
finish this.
We have a motion and a second to
Right.
pay the bills. Can we finish that motion?
First.
Then you
Then
can
we're
go
gonna
on
go
and
on
say
to your,
anything you
we're
want.
gonna go on to, yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay?
Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Roll call.
Councilman McAtoy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Myers.
Yes.
Councilwoman Napolitani.
Yes.
Councilman Roth.
Yes.
Councilman Tucker.
I'm gonna abstain.
Yes.
Councilman Smigrowski.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Tucker, you can go on now, I'm sorry.
Okay, I brought up the points that I wanted to bring up as far as,
Okay, would you like to make a motion of correction?
you mean as far as what? To have the community center pay bills?
Yes.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
That's fair. Bring up the motion that the community center of Belvedere, pays the bills for the building that they occupy.
They're utilities.
Their utilities, correct. And make correction to where, it isn't a library, so that's another item that should be corrected on our records. It's not a library, it's community center of Belvedere, and that we shouldn't be getting a waiver for it.
I think you're confusing your motion. I think you ought to do this.
Oh, well, it's part of the bill. It's part of, I'm sorry, okay, it's part of the bills. That's why I brought it up. It's one of the bills, why I thought it.
You can make that as a second motion, if you like. That motion is way
You'd
too
like to make
complicated as it was.
Councilman Tucker would like to
Yes.
make a motion to have the Belvedere Community Center of Belvedere
Pay their-
pay all their utility bills.
Sure.
That's Councilman Tucker's motion. Do we have a second? No? Motion fails. Councilman Councilman Tucker, would you like to make a motion that the scout home of the Belvedere Scout troops pay their own utilities?
I would say I'd rather hold off on that for the simple reason to talk to maybe somebody from the Scouts and go from there.
Two of us.
Okay, please bring that back. Please bring that back at the next meeting.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, public comments.
Excuse me, Mayor, I have a comment before we go any further. Councilman Tucker, did I understand you to say that you called JCP&L about these two bills?
Excuse me, can you speak a little louder?
Did I understand that you called JCP&L about these bills, outstanding bills?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Mayor, why do we have liaisons? We have two financial people, and we have a councilman that's going rogue and doing his own thing. So if I call JCP&L, all right, and Councilwoman Napolitani calls JCP&L, Councilman Myers calls Councilwoman Myers calls JCP&L, why are we doing this? You cannot, you've got to stay in your realm of responsibility. At least show respect for our councilwoman who's in charge of finance, who's been doing an outstanding job. That's all I have to say.
Councilman McIntyre, I'd like to reply to that. stepped on some toes, Councilman McAtoro. This was in reference to the DPW building that they took an affront to when I, at the time, was still substitute teaching and happened to be at the Vo-Tech, and I asked him, I said, you know, Mr. So-and-so, can you take a look at this just to get some feedback, find out what you thought? The gentleman looked at it, and he said, look, I'd be willing to go out, take a look at it, give you my advice, my expertise advice, right? He was somebody that deals with building. And set up with Mr. Snyder, he had one of his employees there. And to make a long story short, I questioned why we couldn't reuse the building since it was a steel structure. Steel structure, all you had to do was redo the roof, redo the skin, what have you. No, it was a safety issue. So the initial amount was $240,000. And when this gentleman looked at it and saw what was there, he brought up a couple of good points. He says, the retaining wall that's next to CenturyLink, whatever it was, he had a concern about. He goes, you start messing, you may open up a can of worms. And he took a look at everything and he said, how much did they say it was going to be for this pole building? I said, $240,000. He goes, listen, $650,000, and that's preposterous. That's if you've got somebody that's in the business. We went from $240,000 to $800,000 to $1.2 million. And town council got upset because I stepped on some toes. Shame on you. Shame on you. The DPW building's still there. They fixed up, they shored up the problem with the roof. It's still there. And because I stepped on some toes.
Okay, thank you very much for your comment.
Not to mention engineering costs that we lost, 20, 30.
Thank you very much for your comment.
And again, total disrespect to Councilman Myers at that time. Okay,
No, that's
you do your own thing.
public comment. Anything you would like. Feel
Well, it's been a couple-
feel free to sit there, stand, wave.
You never had trouble hearing me, that's for sure.
No.
It's been a couple of months. What's the status of the property on the corner of Greenwich and Front? And that sidewalk is horrendous.
The state just posted a sign on the front door.
Saying what?
I think they're gonna go through foreclosure and take the property.
And then what happens to it? Sits
The
there-
railing, the front porch has been cleaned up. I know it's not a lot. The railings are put on. Still means nothing to me. The issue is the sidewalks and the trash in the back.
Well, I
Sue,
have
the
to know.
only opportunity, the only thing we could do, and we've done this in the past, is we can clean up the rear of the property and we put a lien against the building.
The tenant in the next building,
Right.
in the back,
Right.
has her kids clean up the trash in the
Right.
back.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So there's no progress really
Yeah.
being made.
There's really no progress. To me, the big issue is the sidewalk.
Yes,
The issue is
it's
gonna be both the
horrible.
sidewalk and the tree. I mean, it is a real big liability.
Yeah. Okay. Charlie, how many sex offenders did you say were within this 1 square mile?
I'm just going by memory, I want to say around 12. I think it's around 12.
In 1
So
square
far.
mile?
Yeah.
Sex offender is a.
Actually, there's
it's a
a,
broad-
I understand
There is
that,
a-
but it's
there is a-
still too many.
there is a website out there. If you go on to New Jersey State
You
Police.
can't legislate them not to live here. We
Uh,
tried that.
I would love to.
Shut down.
We tried that.
Actually, everybody that's read their package, we've actually just gotten a letter from the county prosecutors on that
Reminding us
specific, reminding us very strong
Right. We had to repeal
on
an
that, and I'll
ordinance
give you a
that
copy of it if you.
we had on the books.
I think if you go on the New Jersey State Police website, you can actually list, it will list not only every sex offender, but their address and where they live.
I did that a number of years ago, when I asked one of the patrolmen if they ever, because I happen to have seen somebody that I saw on the list and was committing what I felt was,
Harassment.
yeah, no, I was gonna harass him.
I know.
But he was sitting there morning and night watching the kids back and forth and trying to converse with them. And I said to the one patrolman, don't you guys ever check your sex offender lists? oh, well, if there's an incident, we do. Well, if there's an incident, it's too late, isn't it?
They're not parole officers,
I understand that.
I'm just saying. They have an obligation to,
Not monitor?
Well, it's not fair to say.
yeah, I'm not going to parole. Never mind.
Anything
Okay.
else?
Never mind, I was just curious.
Linda?
I just have a quick question, thank you, for Adam, actually. You're requesting 60,000 for possibly doing some streets that will never see grants.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
can you list what streets they are?
It would be a part of Independence Street that's unfinished. Part of Independence and not to say, I'm sorry, not to say that it could never get a grant, but there's a piece of Ray Street that's unfinished. And the other piece would be the kind of an orphan piece of Fifth Street, which would be outside of that grant stretch. Basically, we would go from Oxford, or from Greenwood Street to Spring Street. That way, Fifth Street could be done in completion, perhaps, and that will all be depending with the grant.
So when we're looking at road footage for all these projects, approximately, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, and I apologize for that, but
I might be ready for you.
approximately footage, what are we talking about?
You want tonnage? I can give you tonnage.
And give me tonnage.
200, 300, and 145.
And that's how thick of a layer going down? Inches?
I got my number based on a 2-inch overlay, and I figured in some milling, some base repair, some leveling, keyways, water box, and manhole risers.
Oh, they're incorporated in that also, okay. Potholes does not come under capital, that comes under the regular budget.
Correct.
How much do they have allotted for potholes this year?
For road materials, well, our budget's not final, but
Well, what is slated in that spot?
It's $20,000. It's $20,000 for road work and road material.
Is that a decrease in this budget from last year?
no.
It's the same, 20,000?
Well, last year's budget was grouped together as a whole last year.
Road materials.
There was road work, road materials, 20,000.
In this budget, this one's set up a little different, so it's kind of hard to answer. That the breakdown of the line items is a little different.
Adam wanted to be sure that the funds that was budgeted for specific work, potholes, hot patch, was on a separate line, so that fund and that money was dedicated for that, not to be confiscated and used for somewhere else.
So my direct question then, the amount that approximately was budgeted last year is the same for this year?
No, this year's, there's a lot of changes from last year.
Is it less or more, or?
Probably on that particular line item, it's probably pretty close.
Okay, all right. And then finally, I guess there's been a lot of people going on the town website to look at the budget meeting. One of the, not only one person, but several people were wondering, Mayor, if the back taxes that were collected from the railroad money, since really that money should have been collected all those years, and unfortunately, for some reason or another, that got lost in the collection.
It's going back to the taxpayer.
That's my question. Is the total amount, can that go back as a reduction this year? the 100,000.
Well, pretty much it is, actually 117,000 is, because we took the money from the fund balance and the money that was collected from the railroad, as I discussed during the budget meeting. I'll say this again. That's why we're able to pay that off in 6 years versus 7 years. We could have taken that money and just spent it on a trip to Tahiti or whatever have you. But instead, we wanted to make sure that we impacted every taxpayer. And the taxpayers have paid these fees year after year after year. So there was no better way than to give all that money back to the taxpayer by paying their debt service off that they've paid for so many years. So in answer to all the several people that are watching it, I hope they watch this meeting again and understand that that money is going back to every taxpayer in the town of Belvedere. It's not being used for streets or a truck or a camera or roads. It's going to pay down debt that was created in past years.
Okay.
The other thing I would point out too, is again, just so people understand, a lot of what Conrail paid back to us was interest at 18%. So really, we got back a lot more than just the taxes that were owed.
What year did that go back to?
I don't recall the exact year. There was an initial, I think, yeah, there was
1982?
somebody, I think, believe it or not, way back when Harry Siebel, I think, was the attorney for the town. And if you can recall, Judge Siebel, who was an absolute gentleman, a first-class guy, but he, actually, when I got my search work on that parcel, he had tried to foreclose that. The problem with that property was it was listed as unknown, and I think it basically got dropped out of foreclosure at the time because nobody could track it down. This time around, we started over, and with the help of, actually, I gave Kathy a ton of credit, because she did a lot of the search work, and between the two of us, and just kind of, and again, maybe a little bit of luck even too, we sent out letters like 8 zillion spin-offs, because the railroad had spun off in 18 different directions, and I did mailings to everybody, and somebody looked at it and said, oh yeah, that is ours, we are the successor, and that's why that was a difficult property, because it was unknown, and there have been so many consolidations and spin-offs in the railroad business, so I think that's why it was so many years sitting there.
And Linda, we've done several of them, and I'm not exactly sure what the number of this property was, but this started out as only owing a couple few $100. And that's how it compounded after all these years.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's it,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Rita.
I want to thank Mr. Tutka for worrying about saving the money for us. But having said, I appreciate you trying to save money on something that should be. The community center keeps a lot of young children off the street. The Scout Home keeps a lot of them off the street. The community center is used at least 7 days a week. I don't quite frankly give a hoot what it costs. If it's keeping kids off the street and keeping them happy, pay the damn bill. Scout Home is used at least 5 days a week. Don't sweat it. No, don't look at me like that. I have to be involved with it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please
It's
do.
used 5 days a week for help with that.
For Scouts. For
5
Scouts.
days a week?
Yes.
Friday's the only, well.
And we don't have any revenue either, because we never charge anybody for it.
Friday and Sunday are the only 2 days that somebody isn't meeting in there.
Scouts.
Yes, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts.
Well, I'm glad I said I wanted to go talk to somebody then, right? Find out.
Yes.
Feel free if you dare.
And the other thing,
The Joe Kennedy Jr., he's a scoutmaster there.
yes, he is.
I don't have anything against whatsoever on scouting. It's just that if we really want to take a look at bills and, again, use and so forth, that's what I'm doing.
Yes, but take a look at something. You're looking at things that you're raising these children to say, okay, now guys, if you want to have a scout home, you'll pay your own bills because we don't want to do it, but we have money for other things. I think you should not take away from the children. You should encourage the children of everywhere the community center or the scout home. It's ridiculous.
Thank you very much. Yes,
The other
ma'am.
thing I want to say is, every time Mr. McTour gives his report, I feel guilty, but not guilty enough to stop. I get my officers up there when I can, and if you could see the kids, and it's different kids every time, when Dave and Frank walk in, those kids just bombard them.
That's good.
They
And that's exactly.
That's what it's for.
That's exactly what, you
And-
want them to be able
yes.
to approach him, not only there, but to approach him on the
Yeah.
streets and sidewalks and
Exactly.
wave them down. And that's what's so important, whether it's the community center,
Yeah.
whether it's the church and your lunch, all these activities, we're finally bringing this community back where our children are appreciating and respecting our law enforcement officers, and they're willing to approach them.
Yeah, and it also is working with some of my folks that have a few PTSD, some of that. It's benefiting all the way around, and I know when they can, they come, when they can't, they don't. But they have been there quite a few times, and I can't say enough good about them, they are fantastic.
And also,
Thank you.
as far as the community center goes, the amount of activity that they have has increased by almost 25% in first 2 months of this year versus the same period last year. The amount of people coming through there has grown by almost 42%. They had last year 589 people, and this year they have 832. They have a lot of activity. They provide the texture of what our community is. And I'm looking at a website, I'm doing some research out of personal curiosity about legalized marijuana. And I was looking at different cities in Massachusetts just to see what's going on in those states. And I ran across a website called Niche. And Niche rates towns by a bunch of criteria. And I said, well, geez, how do they rate Belvedere? Well, they rate Belvedere as a C. And I said, I've lived in C's. This is not a C. This is not a C town. And it bothers me, but things like the community center are the things that are going to help us change that. And so I have to say that charging them, I think, is crazy.
I'll tell you what, I was there
Taxes
Friday
last
night, fourth Friday of the month, guys, you gotta go. Trivia night for adults. You know, you had Angela and Mike Moyer there, you know, you had the B-Hays there, the Belbys was there, you know, Miss Kohler, you know, Alex Johnson, who should be on Jeopardy soon. I mean, but to show you the diversity of the age of the people going there, it's just absolutely incredible, you know, I mean, and, you know, we tend not to look at the things that they have done. They've invested in lighting, and they bought lamps and lighting. They've invested in, they have a brand new mounted flat screen TV, hooked up with computer and audio now. That didn't come from us, you know, that's coming from their funds. They made the effort to get the grant to redo the floors. The carpet's coming out, and the community is helping them. You know, they fully furnished the teen room themselves with ping pong tables and bistro tables and cheers, you know. So let's not overlook the thousands of dollars that through their work and effort that they are contributing to it. I mean, we've had a family that's so overwhelmed with it, put a top-of-the-art security camera system in that's going in, you know. So these are all donations, you know, from our community and from parents of these children that are so comfortable even to let them take their bikes there now and drop them off. So there's a lot we're getting in return. Yes.
I just have a question for Councilman Roth. With that study, what was their criteria?
And there's a bunch of them. Forgive me. I'll give you a few. Public schools, private safety, housing, nightlife, good for families, diversity, jobs, weather, cost of living, health and fitness, outdoor activities, commute, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's called niche.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, we've got George's. What are you kidding?
We're a big on nightlife.
the state police website, within 5 miles, it only has 4 of them registered for 07823, but it does have 183 non-mappable individuals.
183 what?
Non-mappable, in other words, they don't have their address.
Oh,
Talking to the chief, I think he said we had around 12 that he processed, so,
those are the ones
Thanks for what's worth.
that do what they're supposed to do.
well, that's just it, you know. That's a reoccurring theme. You see it all the time in papers. They were arrested for not registering or whatever. But anyway, state police website has 4.
Chief's contract.
All right, Councilman McAvoy, did the chief approve his contract?
Okay, last time we had a council meeting, we went into executive session, presented the chief's contract. I went and presented it to the chief, he accepted it, signed it, and that's where we're at.
So I just asked Teresa to put on tonight, we don't need an executive, because you guys, it's unchanged other than a few changes we made with the salary, and we got rid of the comp time. And actually, when I looked at it, Charlie and I cleaned up a couple extraneous definitions which weren't even used in the contract, so. But, and we also, we also retyped it, so we now have, again, as we go through these contracts, we're slowly, I think that might be the last one.
Is
We've
what
got
Matt
all the
gave
nice,
me, I'm sorry.
so we got all the nice word format for going for the next time.
Is what Matt gave me what
That's part of the contract.
came
Yeah.
from,
Correct.
okay, that's all I
We
need
just
to
need a
know.
motion to,
Because, you know, copies come and go and I,
Yeah,
always-
and it's
do I
actually-
have the right one?
Councilman has it in word format, like you said.
yeah,
Versus what we presented versus what we got back.
Mine came from Matt, not
Yeah.
from you, so I wasn't
yeah.
sure I had it
It
right.
actually came from the previous council, which is,
That's fine.
Do I have a motion and a second to approve it as we
I have a motion.
discussed in executive?
I have a motion to approve the chief's contract as presented.
Second.
Questions or comments?
It's in reference to the police chief's salary.
Correct. The same things we discussed last time.
Right. Well, I don't know if people know, what, is it okay to bring up just to verify the amounts?
Yeah,
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
Okay, just so, you know, I'm on the.
No, I like to read them from the contract so you're correct. Okay? Is that all right with you?
Sure.
Okay. In 2019, the salary is $115,500. In 2020, it's $123,585. In 2021, it's $129,764. And in 2022, it's $133,657.
And that, is it still 10%, 7%, 5%, 3%?
Yes.
There's no percentages in this document.
That's what it equates to.
I thought that's what we were looking at, 10%,
I think that's.
7%, 5%, 3%.
That's what the figures.
That's what the
equate
dollar
to.
amounts
I
represent.
understand, I just want to make sure that's what we were, okay.
And I just want everybody to also know, since you never get the full part of the story, you always get this, oh my God, the sky's falling. You know, but I just, no, I want you to relax.
Okay.
I got my rubber band, I'm good. So basically, in a nutshell, I think, first of all, I'm more than honored and pleased to have the chief we have and the work that they've done. But here's something very important that people have to realize in our surrounding municipalities around this area, okay? After this 4-year increase to get him to where he's at, okay? One of our lowest chiefs to bring in right now in this area, as we stand right now, is only at $133,000. So our chief has nicely, okay, could have gone anyplace, could have changed the whole philosophy of the town and the community and break apart everything that, you know, Reva spoke about and everything else. So in reality, our chief has really financially helped us out quite a bit because he's 4 years behind where the average chief of police is. So I think we should be very, very grateful for that.
And according to an article that was printed in the Express Times, he is the lowest paid
That is correct.
chief of police in
That is-
Warren County.
That is correct. That is correct.
Well, I think that's why the first couple of jumps are higher, we're trying to kind of catch them up.
We
That's why.
went up and then we went down, if you can imagine. We went down, you know. And he could have just said no.
Yeah,
He could have
I
just,
mean, he is the lowest
You
paid
know,
chief.
so what we would have been into a position with is trying to find somebody at between 130 and 145 and then adding all of these fees, you know, so we could potentially have been any place, 150, 160, 170 after 4 years. So, it's sad that executive session is the way it is sometimes, because you don't really hear all the things that I really want the public to understand, you know?
He's a good kid.
And as Councilman
You know, Mr. Tucker throws out the number of 10%, it sounds staggering at first. But when you look at, there's a lot of thought that went into this, both on our side and the chief's side. You know, he sat with the Police Chiefs Association. He knew what he was talking about. With this raise, there's only potentially one department in Warren County that makes less than our chief. And actually, they used to make more. Their chief retired, they hired a new guy, so they brought him in a lower salary. That's not been verified. So, according to my study right now, even with a 10% raise, he's the lowest in Warren County.
Yeah.
When I look at it, and the other thing that, you know, council has been advising us is we've been trying to go with 4-year contracts. So we were able to get a secure 4-year contract. We know what we're walking into in the next 4 years or 3 years. At the end of the 4th year, it still doesn't put them in the middle of the pay grade of the other chiefs. So,
Not even close.
you know, and as the mayor said, we're talking about this in executive session. You know, we're talking about a really cohesive group of individuals that work really well together. The chief does a great job. He comes in 7 days a week when he's needed. He doesn't hit us for anything. Just an outstanding job. So that's where we're at.
You know, just add one more thing, Charlie, again, and thank the chief for me as well. Is, although it was minimal, we used to give the chief a regenerating comp time of 36 hours a year, okay? He worked boo-hoo overtime last year and never charged us. In this contract, he gave up his only 36 hours in comp time on the salary, you know, unheard of. So when you guys get out there and you see him, please thank him, send him a card, send him a letter. The kid is smart.
He's a good
He's
kid.
tech savvy, he's computer savvy, he's everything that we wanted to achieve 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when we went through the reclassification of a chief protocol, you know, and it is paying for the town of Belvedere very nicely now. Any other public comment? Oh, I'm sorry. We got a motion and a second.
I
Any
have
other
one other
discussion?
question. Councilman McAtory, what's that found? Where was that? Somebody being paid less than our chief?
Yeah, it's not verified, so I don't know.
Oh, it's not here.
No.
All right. It was in 1 square mile town.
I can tell you that the previous salary was $116,000. I haven't verified the new salary. That would be the lowest paid next to us, 116, which still doesn't put the chief there.
And he falls at the bottom end of the scale. Would you say that the activity in Belvedere is something other than the bottom end of the scale?
Oh my God, we're one of the top 3. Other than Washington, Hackettstown, and Phillipsburg, I don't think anybody has the numbers that Belvedere has. You're talking 40-member department in Phillipsburg.
And Hackettstown has a good number now, too.
They do. Their last study, their chief was making 35, I think.
Well, the only suggestion I can say is we can get a lesser chief and hire 3 or 4 more officers. You know, then where would we be?
Okay, we have a motion
Roll
and a
call.
second on the floor to approve the chief's contract as amended.
We all say yes.
Councilman McAtoy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Myers.
Yes.
Councilwoman Napolitani.
Yes.
Councilman Roth.
Yes.
Councilman Tucker.
No.
Councilman Brodsky.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes. Adam, you want to, are we squared away on the lawn mowing for DEK, landscape for the grass? Are we good on that?
Write that little tweak to the language.
Yep.
Do you want to make a motion on that, or?
I can, that,
Or we'll do it April, we'll do it April.
okay.
We'll do it April. This way everybody can have a copy of it. No, I don't want, you know, somebody not.
I don't think there was, I didn't see any reason to recopy everybody. There was
Okay.
only a small paragraph change. Can you tell us what it was?
I believe it was a 1-sentence revision to, I think it was paragraph 1.3, it was just to clarify that,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. No,
if we request, if our director of might do some horse trading. So we just, the contractor just wanted that clarified. I ran it by Adam, Adam was satisfied, so that was it. And I think
So
that
what
was,
you provided to me today is
yeah,
the up to date, we're good.
it was everything that we already.
Kyle
approved.
can come in and sign.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
contract.
he'll see it tomorrow.
I just want to clean it up.
Yep.
That's Stephen K, right?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
price didn't change, Randy. We
Yeah.
take action on this pretty soon.
I thought we did it. So,
Well, then he came back and he didn't want to sign it because of
We want to
1.3, and we were back. and
right, the word, the
Friday, he
language.
called me and said,
You
you
wanna
have to
take
do
care of
this,
that?
and I
You
said,
wanna make a
no,
motion?
you need to call somebody else.
Make a motion to.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we award the EK Landscape Services the municipal mowing contract.
And that was 27 cuts from April 1st to.
I'll second that motion.
Any questions? Roll call?
Councilman McAtoy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Myers.
Yes.
Councilwoman Napolitani.
Yes.
Councilman Roth.
Yeah.
Councilman Tucker.
Conflict recused.
Councilman Zabrowski.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so very much, everybody. I'm sorry the meeting was a little bit of a late one tonight. We tried to get it done in 45 minutes or an hour, but again, I thank everybody for their understanding, their patience. Have a great night. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.